You found us. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you today in front of my gong, in front of my Vegan Power t-shirt. Not to say that I'm better than you, but I'm just vegan, and maybe we'll talk about some things today that'll make you say, yeah, I try veganism. I tried that. I mean, I saw a guy today who had he had like all the antlers of all the game that he's killed on his wall. It kind of turned me off. And if you're vegan, you want food that's not cruel. You want to talk to people who aren't cruel. You believe in non-cruelty, and it did affect me. I saw this, and yet he said something interesting, and I'm going to share what he said to me a little later. But anyway, I woke up this morning and I realized that I haven't talked anything about North Carolina. I haven't talked anything about the hurricane and the flooding and the people who are in need. And I have a few friends and a few associates who are in the Carolinas. One in Asheville, a friend of mine of longstanding, Filipino-American guy, who I've known since he was a teenager. I know his relatives. I know his family. And I finally saw something that he posted on Facebook. And I wanted to share that with you because it's affecting everyone. Although, you see people on the news, and they're generally white, not Asian, not Filipino. I don't think I've seen any black people represented. And that, North Carolina, there's got to be victims who are black. Today I saw Al Roker on the Today Show, and he was with a crowd that was a little more diverse. So it's important not to think, oh, North Carolina, it's those people. It's all of us. It's America, right? So a friend of mine posted on Facebook, he's in the Asheville area, left California a few years back to live in Asheville. He says, he just posted this a day ago. Looking at the devastation across the state of North Carolina, haven't had an opportunity to see it outside of my area due to lack of power. The footage of Asheville and Swanoa. Is that it? Swannanoa is just horrifying, heartbreaking. I mean, those are words you hear again and again. Horrifying, heartbreaking, unbelievable. People in my community of Summer Path Village, a mobile home community. And when he said that, my heart sank because, if you're in a mobile home community and you're facing hurricane force winds, tropical storm winds, when the last places you want to be is a mobile home community. He says, my community has banded together and are looking out for one another. We have a generator and have been fortunate to have meals. Sending love to all from Hendersonville, North Carolina. And the great thing about my friend, Tony Robles, who I've known for, as I said, decades, his uncle was Al Robles, who is a noted Asian American, Filipino American poet who I first met in working the I Hotel, working with seniors in the I Hotel. He's a community activist, a leader. I met him when I first came to San Francisco as a news person. I'm born and raised. I'm a native San Franciscan, but I left and came back, and there was Al doing his thing for the community, but he was also a noted poet. And Tony, his nephew, had the gift of poetry, and he wrote this poem. It's called Power, after Hurricane Helene, by Tony Robles. We have no power. We have no lights. We have darkness and stars and crickets and splinters that have pierced our roads and the skin of our homes and our eyes. We grope about looking for a candle to find the light in our eyes, searching for the doorknob, the keyhole. Perhaps the light is there. We have no power, but I've met neighbors here that I've never spoken to. And in the calmness of night, I see the light in their eyes as they see the light in mine. And we realize somehow we have power. A touching poem by my good friend Tony Robles, Hendersonville, North Carolina. He posted that, and it's just, I think it tells the story. You reach out, you're powerless, but together as a community, you have power. Together, we're unified. And that kind of is the theme of today's show. Unity, a sense of unity. I know it says obesity in the space underneath here. We'll get to that because it was something in the news that caught my eye. But really, what I want to talk about is this sense of unity through disaster, unity through the horribleness of Helene. And my friend Tony, writing this poem, talking about how you come together and you talk to people you've never talked to before, and suddenly you look into each other's eyes in the darkness and you see that, yeah, together we have power. We have power because we are for the first time together. And that just hit me like, oh, yeah, we need to be more like that. In times of disaster, in times where need has been created, we have to come together and provide and service that need for each other. Together, it's unifying. And what have we seen from our leaders? We've seen Biden go down there, yeah, and Harris is going to be there. We see Trump there. And what does Trump do? The only thing Trump knows how to do is say, well, the feds have made sure that money is going to Democratic, strongholds and enclaves and not to Republican ones. They're not going to people who support me, which is an absolute falsehood, an absolute lie. How dare he? Donald Trump using the hurricane, using Helene to divide our country for, to his end, as a way to say, yeah, oh, those rotten guys, that's why we're voting for Trump. What did Trump do for you? Except come to your area in North Carolina and tell lies. And not to try to unify, but to divide. I just hope people realize, and people are in the dark in Carolina. They don't, they're not accessing news. They don't know what's going on. Donald Trump comes in, and if they're supporting Trump, it's very, very close. But if they're a Trump supporter and they say, oh, Trump is saying this about the Democrats, no, it's a lie. Know that Donald Trump is lying. Know that Donald Trump doesn't know anything. He has no influence whatsoever, right? Instead, listen to Joe Biden. Listen to Kamala Harris. They're in the government. They know what's going on. They're telling you the truth. You might say, oh, Biden didn't show up till days late. Well, the way FEMA works, FEMA's there. Presidents, when they show up, they just get in the way. He's going there to make assessments. He's there now, I understand. But this is not about politics. It's about unity. Remember that. And who's the divider? the divider, Trump, that's his thing. Who's the unifier? Democrats. They're in charge. They're getting as much as they can. I mean, I listen to the news and I see the people. What I like about my friend Tony writing this poem and posting it is that it's a reminder that it's not us all, Southern white people in Carol. It's a diverse group. And I didn't get a sense of that diversity until I was watching the Today Show, and Al Roker was out there, and he knew what to do. He got the volunteers, and the volunteers were very diverse. There were some Asians in there, African Americans with whites. They were working for the food bank. And for being volunteers and for posing with Al Roker, they all got special bonuses and food and water. And then it was, this is kind of corporate, but this is what needs to happen. Corporates like Lowe's and Harris Teeter's made a big donation to the local food bank. So that's what you want to see. You want to see people pitching together, helping each other, not a politician like Donald Trump coming in saying, oh, the Democrats aren't, they're not helping out Republicans. Totally false. Don't believe that. This is a time we work together. As my friend Tony Robles said in his poems, you feel powerless because of the storm. You search around in the darkness. You find other people, and you look people who you live next to, you haven't never seen before, and you look in their eyes and you realize that indeed there is power in your situation if we stay together. So I just realized when I was looking over the last couple of shows, haven't talked about North Carolina. I wanted to. I mean, this show is called WDAAAT. What does an Asian American think? And thank goodness for my friend Tony Robles who wrote that poem, because he told me what an Asian American thinks. Asian American Filipino. Thank you, Tony. Godspeed, Tony. And I hope you're well. I mean, he had to be in probably one of the worst situations in Hendersonville in a mobile home park. I guess that's just outside of Asheville. But they banded together. They're helping each other. There are meals. There's a generator. They're helping each other. That's the positive thing out of this. Not division, not polarization, not the kind of thing that Donald Trump thrives on. This is new. This is a sense of unity out of disaster. And if you look at the news from yesterday, what did we see? We saw Kamala Harris and we saw Liz Cheney getting together in Ripon, Wisconsin. Ripon, Wisconsin. I know that name, Ripon, Wisconsin, because there is a town in California called Ripon, not Ripon, not Ripon, Ripon, California, named after that town in Wisconsin, which is the birthplace of the Republican Party. And there they were there for an important reason, together, because America, during the Trump years, has had to deal with a disastrous political landscape. And it's because of Hurricane Trump. Not Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Trump. And Hurricane Trump has come in and turned everything upside down. Upside down. Right is wrong, wrong is right. People would ordinarily do the peaceful transition of power January 6th. Remember, Donald Trump did not. Tried everything he could to subvert the peaceful transition of power. Thank goodness for Mike Pence. And what did Mike Pence get in exchange? He got people yelling, hang Mike Pence. He got Donald Trump saying, when Pence had to leave the Capitol because of the January 6 rioters. They had Donald Trump, who was watching television during most of the rioting. And this has come out just in the last couple days because of Special Prosecutor Jack Smith released some of the testimony where people said, yeah, we went to Donald Trump and he was watching television. We said, hey, we got to stop this. And Mike Pence has been evacuated. And Donald Trump's response, so what? So what? So Donald Trump was like, he's been like Hurricane Trump to our political system, turning things upside down, wreaking havoc. And yesterday, when Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney came together, it was a unifying force to stand up together. Kamala Harris, who you want to call her a radical? Kamala Harris, a radical when she can stand arm in arm with Liz Cheney, one of the most conservative Republicans there is? Kamala Harris is not a radical. Kamala Harris is, if anything, a profound moderate who plays politics. She'll do the right thing, but she's a politician. And here, because of Hurricane Trump, she's standing together with Liz Cheney, one of the most conservative Republicans there is, from the Cheney family. Dick Cheney, who deserves that first name. He was one. But Liz Cheney, you know, you can disagree on a lot of things. Look at her voting record. Look what she voted for. But sometimes when you're a politician, there's one principled position that brings you together, that makes you say, yes, we're Americans. We can go forward. We are patriotic Americans. We believe in this. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in the fundamentals of America. And who among the Republicans is saying that? I mean, there are some people who are never Trumpers who say they'll never vote for Trump. But who is putting it on the line? Who has risked and lost her power, her position in Congress? Who put it out there so that she put country and democracy before herself? Lesser politicians would put themselves first. Lesser politicians who are still in office and backing Trump. Lesser politicians who are now out of office and want to seize power again. Who has shown the courage and the patriotism of Liz Cheney? I'm telling you, you look at Liz Cheney's voting record and she's one of them. Except when it comes to the fundamentals of our democracy, where we can stand together, united as Americans. And she can say, thank God for Kamala Harris. She's going to vote for her. And we can say, thank God for Liz Cheney. We support her. And Republicans like her. This is really the new America. It's not the America where the demographics change and everyone is fearful that, oh, there's more brown people, there's more Hispanics, or there's more blacks. There's not enough whites. We've got to have a greater birth rate now. No. Forget those demographic guys. where's the new America where people stand together and say hooray for democracy? Who say we've got to do something to save our republic? Who stand together despite having differences, because it is better to be part of a republic than it is to be part of a selfish autocracy where it's just power and who has it and who doesn't. To do what Liz Cheney did yesterday took courage and took trust. And to have Kamala Harris out there accept Liz Cheney, because you know she's going to get pushback from progressives. She's going to get pushback from people on the left saying, oh, in bed with Liz Cheney now, huh? Hey, after Hurricane Helene, Trump, that's the visual for you. How does America respond? We respond by coming together, by standing up and working together to make things right again. That's what Liz Cheney did. If you have it on TiVo or wherever, YouTube TV, and you saved some of the news yesterday, get that speech of Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney in Ripon, Wisconsin, with Kamala Harris. It was a great speech. And maybe I'll play a little bit. She said something that was really telling. She talked about all right, let's play the whole thing. Not the whole thing. She's talking about Donald Trump. And here's this is Liz Cheney.
He refused repeated pleas from his family, from his closest advisors, from the most senior officials in his campaign and in our government to tell the mob to leave. And when Donald Trump finally did speak publicly after hours of violence, after the Capitol had been invaded, he praised the rioters. He did not condemn them. That's who Donald Trump is.
So Liz Cheney just going over January 6th again. And you notice January 6th did not become such a big thing. This is like the anchor leg of the 400-meter relay of issues. And, you know, it's still primarily economics, and good thing for the Democrats because the economic news has been great today in terms of the job numbers. That's been good. The stock market is going great, fabulously that's good for the Democrats. But January 6th has not been an issue, and it will be in this last leg as we go into the home stretch. We got about a month away from the election day. I'm going to vote tomorrow. I'm going to punch my vote. I'm going to vote tomorrow, and I'm going to hand it in. My mind is made up. But here's Liz Cheney talking about how Donald Trump was on January 6th, and everyone should know the TikTok of January 6th and how Donald Trump just ignored these facts.
Those facts do not come from Donald Trump's political opponents. Those facts come from the people closest to him.
See, she's talking about how the information that was released by Jack Smith, prosecutor Jack Smith, and that Liz Cheney heard, you know, as she was head of the investigation. She's saying, look, these were Republicans who were speaking out against what Donald Trump was doing, not Democrats, not political opponents. These are people who are saying, hey, President, You got to do something here. This riot. This was coming from other Republicans, people inside, people he worked with. And Donald Trump wouldn't budge.
They are the ones who testified that Donald Trump did not want to stop the violent attack on our Capitol. When he learned that Vice President Pence was not going to abandon his oath and help Trump seize power, Trump sent out a tweet attacking Pence and further inflaming the mob. One of Trump's aides testified that shortly after that, this aide received a phone call alerting him that the vice president had been evacuated for his own safety from his office off the floor of the Senate. This aide recalled rushing to the dining room to tell Trump, hoping that this information would convince him to take immediate action to ensure the vice president's safety. Instead, after this aide delivered that news, Donald Trump looked up at him and said, "So what?"
Now, that was maybe the most dramatic thing that was released this week when Jack Smith tried to make the claim that, Donald Trump was not acting in his official capacity as president. This was a private concern. He is not immune. He does not deserve the immunity. Acting as president, he was acting in a private capacity. This is the claim that might sway Judge Tanya Chutkan to go ahead with the prosecution against Donald Trump. But you got to hear this. This is coming from people on the inside trying to tell Trump, you got to do something about January 6th. And you could say, look, this is history. You got to care about this. You're voting in November. You got to care about this. It's important because this is what Donald Trump said. He said, so what? So what?
He said, so what? Donald Trump was willing to sacrifice our Capitol to allow law enforcement officers to be beaten and brutalized in his name and to violate the law and the Constitution in order to seize power for himself. I don't care if you are a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. That is depravity, and we must never become numb to it. Any person who would do these things can never be trusted with power again. We must defeat Donald Trump on November 5th.
And that was Liz Cheney really defining it in Ripon, Wisconsin yesterday, defining depravity. And if you look at it as analogous to the current situation in North Carolina, Hurricane Helene, Donald Trump has been a hurricane through our political landscape, and it's time we recognize that he represents a kind of depravity that we cannot allow to be in power again. We just can't. You heard it from Liz Cheney, and I was reminded of that as I heard my friend Tony Robles' poem about being in Asheville right now and about being with people he's never spoken to before, his neighbors, and feeling powerless. But then when he speaks to people together, he realized when he looked in their eyes, they had power. They had real power. And we, as Republicans, Democrats, as Americans, we must come together and see in each other's eyes that we have the power to get our country back again, to save our republic, to save our democracy, and not allow a man who would perpetrate the January 6th riots, who'd like to see them continue so that he could disrupt the peaceful transformation of power, the peaceful transfer of power. We need to see Donald Trump stop. So there it is. Liz Cheney with Kamala Harris yesterday, to me, represented a new America. Those of you who know me in the ethnic media movement, who've always looked upon the ethnic media as being the voice of a new America. The new America isn't black and white and Hispanic and Asian and all the different LGBTQIA. It's not all of us demographically, ethnically together, although that is a big part of it. It is Democrats and Republicans and independents coming together politically and standing on this one point of agreement that our democracy, our republic needs to be saved. And we cannot have the depravity of Trump continue on in power. That's powerful. That's the new America. That's the new hybrid. That's the new model for politics. If you want to get things done, because someone's going to have to fix that, the rubble in North Carolina. It's only going to be fixed if we come together. And the same will happen politically. That is to say, the only thing that will repair the landscape where we have been bitterly divided and polarized, the only thing that will save us if we come together as one patriotic America. And you distrust Liz Cheney for some reason. I mean, I know a lot of people on the left who will distrust her because look at her votes, Emil. Yeah, I know. I looked at them. She's conservative as heck. Yes. Except on the one point about patriotism, except on the one point about our democracy and our country. And she can be nice about it. And maybe that's the lesson from the vice presidential debate, because some people say, oh, J.D. Vance won because he was nice. Yeah. But he's also a person who couldn't answer if Donald Trump won the election in 2020. That's because he's got to believe in January 6th. That's the disqualifying point on J.D. Vance. But on all the other issues, yeah, he can see coming together for the republic, for the betterment of the democracy. But he's Trump's butt boy now. And he's 95%. Well, I don't want to give him that much credit. 90% okay. But the 5%'s a killer. The 5%'s a real killer. So I was taken by Liz Cheney. And I've seen Liz Cheney speak before, both on video, on C-SPAN, when she comes to California, speaking at the Ronald Reagan Library. I've seen her, of course, during the hearings. But I was in Texas recently for the Texas Tribune's big shindig that they have, a sort of an ideas fest. And I said, this is weird. I've never liked more Republicans ever in my life. Doesn't have to be a new thing. It's just to find reasonable Republicans. I think this is the forming of a new America, a new way. You want to get rid of the division? I mean, I meet so many people everywhere who just want to throw up their hands and say, I'm tired of politics. I mean, I know that. I went to Vegas the other day to just ask people, what do you think? Who are you for? They didn't want to say. They didn't want to admit they were interested in politics. But, I'm a captive rider in a lift, and, they want their fifth star. So they told me, I don't like either. I really don't like either of them. But, the economy, and I got to vote for Trump. I said, Trump? Really? Do you know the kind of liar he is? Do you trust this man? You know, there are Republicans out there who really, really, Liz Cheney, listen to Liz Cheney. Well, Liz Cheney was speaking out against Trump all along, but she's coming on strong now out there with Kamala Harris. Of course, people, when I say this to them, they're not following things. They just like Trump. Hey, oh, you know, Kamala Harris has had her years. She could have fixed. No, she was vice president. She couldn't have fixed things. It wasn't. She was vice president. She supported the president. She did not have this way. She could not have had the kind of power that you think she had. So, and that really was J.D. Vance's point, and everyone's just sort of parroting that. Well, what did Kamala Harris do? Well, she was vice president, which is really a ceremonial kind of job. She wasn't border czar. That's a hype that Republicans try to push. She was not in charge of that. So, anyway, I'm taken by Kamala Harris and the Liz Cheney model. I think that is the new way. If we ever want to see ourselves get out of this. Of course, my friends who are diehard leftists and radicals will say, Emil, you're full of it. But you know, we like to disagree. We like to disagree. And frankly, Liz Cheney does represent a way out. She represents a way out, and I like that. I like that. And so I was going to talk about obesity, but instead, let me say a couple of things. First of all, I'll swish out a transition and just remind you that my last column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, is out there now. You should check it out. I talk about WDAAT, what does an Asian American think, and how my new columns will be. You can go to substack.com/@Amok. There it is under the lower third. Substack.com/@Amok, and get my new columns in the Emil Amok newsletter. So go subscribe. It's free. Go down and subscribe to that. And if you want to see more of the Emil Amok's Takeout, which is essentially a talk radio show. It's a podcast, but it's a talk radio show. We're going to put it on Patreon. And I put up an episode there. You can see yesterday's episode where I talk about Project 2025. And it's all it's going to be there. You pick a tier to support it. Patreon. patreon.com/Emil Amok. And that's where you get that. Okay, so there's a commercial. I was going to talk about obesity because it was a great little thing in Axios, which I'll get to. But while he's here, let's bring on my good friend, Professor Daniel Gonzalez, Asian American Studies Professor, California State University, San Francisco, or San Francisco State, Professor Emeritus. Daniel Phil, thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. It must be Friday.
Yeah, it must be. Well, you know, you're on the right there. I'll put you on the left. I'll put you on the left, and I'll be on the right because you're further to the left than I am. Uh-oh, now you froze. Now you're okay. Unfrozen. Now you're unfrozen.
Yeah, well, all right, I don't know. I think it's working. I think it's working now.
Yeah. So Dan,
everything looks okay.
So
I just had my main computer rebuilt, so I'm using my laptop, one of my laptops.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So did you see Liz Cheney? I went on and on about this.
I watched the whole thing. I analyzed the hell out of it.
Yeah, I saw Liz Cheney.
I didn't hear everything that you had to say. I was trying to set up my main computer, wasting time doing that. But I probably agree with you.
Well, let me give you the shorthand. I just think that Liz Cheney represents the new hybrid political America. I started out by talking about North Carolina and Hurricane Helene, because I got a poem written by Tony Robles, which Al Robles' nephew, friend of ours, friend of mine. He's in Asheville. Wrote a poem about how people who are victimized there aren't powerless when they have each other. They look into each other's eyes and they realize that together they're powerful. So I read that and it struck me that America has been through Hurricane Trump the last 8 years. Everything has been upended. And if we're going to come together, we're going to look into each other's eyes, Republicans and Democrats, and say, we have power to save our republic, to save our democracy. As Liz Cheney said yesterday when she called Donald Trump depraved, a sense of depravity on January 6th, this man should not have power again. I think she and Kamala Harris together form a model that can get us out of this mess. That's my take. And yours, sir.
Yeah. I don't know that I can be that optimistic. I agree with you that they constitute a way forward for American society. Here's the problem: what Trump he does more than represent an extreme right. He is the icon for an element in American society that is a cultural feature, which is constant, persistent in American society. And it changes form more like changing labels rather than changing shape. According to what's happening in the world, and more importantly, what's happening domestically, because the people who form this uh, thing on the right, okay, are very local in their orientation. Their sense of self is very immediate. It goes much not much further, literally, than the surface of their face. And so that is what we're up against. We're up against this thing that has existed continuously throughout American society, generation upon generation upon generation.
Wait a minute. Are you saying these people don't have a sense of the national scope of their hate or of their views? Are you saying they're incapable of seeing the republic for being what it is, that they just assume that the republic end because they're just only concerned about themselves?
They're only concerned about themselves as reflected as powerful people who are members of copacetic, you human beings. That's what it is. Excuse me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, they very shallow, very immediate in their orientation, very emotional, okay, and quite capable of maintaining the balance between hatred, and
Yeah.
the animosity that accompanies hatred, and a willingness to commit violence.
All right. So
That's what we're
essentially,
up against. Now, I'm
all
not
right.
saying that this is half of the population of American
Yeah,
society.
but these people just go back under the rock. If good people prevail and follow Liz Cheney, I'm not that. I mean, you call me optimistic. I'm just saying this is the way out for Republicans because Republicans just want to back
Nah,
a winner.
that I
And
cannot. Once
wait,
again,
I'm just saying. Then you're saying that these people who've come out of the rock, out from under a rock because of Trump, they're not going back under. They're still going to be around.
I don't even agree that they're. Yes, I to a certain extent I agree with that. But they're not under a rock. They
Not
simply
anymore.
they no, they don't hide. They do not hide. They simply restrict what they're willing to do publicly. That doesn't put them under a right rock. Neither are they hiding. Their neighbors know who they are.
Yeah.
Okay, and their families know who they are. And the problem is that today, uh, the Republican Party particularly has used the existence of this group, right? I mean, they started learning how to manipulate this portion of the American population under, I would say, Goldwater. When Goldwater ran, and there was an effective campaign that connected Goldwater to the potential for nuclear Armageddon, and he lost, and he was considered a far right conservative at the time, Arizona far right conservative, um, and they learned from that. They had Nixon as their front man.
Right.
Uh, he had lost originally to Kennedy. They also learned from that election that you had to put together a strong marketing style campaign, and that's what they've done ever since. So they've used their understanding
Nope. Well, Dan,
more, uh, let's say, yeah, they are even more.
Dan,
Uh, uh,
you froze a bit there. You froze a bit when they use their marketing. What were you saying?
yeah, okay, they're using their marketing against in favor of a very vulnerable portion of our population. I'm not saying that they're half of the voters in American society. I'm saying
Ah,
by this element. And it's very difficult for me to say that like 1/3 of the population of American society are hardline Trumpers. That may be the case, but
well,
that's not what.
certainly the base, right? The MAGA base.
Sure.
People say is about maybe a third of the Republicans. That's generally been the estimate. But I don't. I mean, I think they're going to be there. Look, the First Amendment gives the KKK the
Okay.
right to go out there and march and speak. Yeah, they have a First Amendment. You have a First Amendment right, but when you cross the line, I'm not saying when I say they're under a rock, that's kind of figurative. They're not literally under a rock. Neighbors know who they are and where they are, but as soon as they act and they cross that line and they are public in a way that is illegal, we saw that.
Okay.
We saw what
Yeah.
happened in LA
I
yesterday, right? When the gangs associated with the white supremacists were arrested. I
Yeah,
mean,
and sometimes they're prosecuted. They're well prosecuted, but you'll notice that the danger is always these days because of the success that the Republican Party has had in appointing judges
oh yeah, yeah,
at all three levels, right? Local, district, appellate, and supreme. They've been very successful in that process. It took them 40 years to do it, but it was a constant process for them, and they did
yeah.
a great job. Well, when those things go up on appeal, look what happens with right now. For example, you know, the prosecution has put up an argument, 165-page argument, right, that challenges the scope of immunity, right, presidential immunity,
Mhm.
and proves it tends to prove with material that comes from, among other things, Mr. Trump's own statements, right, and
Right,
his own actions.
right.
Okay,
This is the thing that Jack Smith
but
released
that's
this.
going to get appealed, and it's going to get appealed now that it's been submitted. That slows the process down, right? It'll go back again to Chutkin. Chutkin will eventually make a decision on what the scope of Trump's vulnerability to criminal charges is. Okay, and
Right.
and then it'll go forward and it'll get appealed again. Okay.
Okay. All right. So the legal process is going to slow it down, but what does it do? The people under a rock
Well,
who are acting illegally and publicly, they're
well,
still going to be there.
yes, still going to be there. They're going to get more frustrated. They're going to get more angry, and especially if Harris Waltz win and down ballot people in the different states win, more Democrats are seated. In other words, and the
Mhm.
Democrats, especially if the Democrats take the House, whether or not they keep the Senate, if they take the House, there's going to be violence. I can guarantee you that there's going to be violence, and the question is going to be whether or not it's lone wolf, and if it stays lone wolf, or if it becomes organized, much more like multiple events, like the attack on the Murrah building
Yeah.
by Idaho-based right wingers,
Yeah.
survivalists.
Yeah. The Murrow building.
Yep.
McVeigh, right?
Yes.
So you're definitely more pessimistic than I did not. I'm
I
not
think
saying.
I'm pragmatic.
Oh, I don't think there's. Well, I don't know if there's going to be violence or not. I'm just saying the way out. If we want a way out, it is if good Republicans like Liz Cheney get together with really moderate Democrats like Kamala Harris. She's no radical. She's a moderate Democrat, and they work
I
together.
wouldn't call her moderate either. But one of the
Well,
terms
she's
that
not.
I've heard,
She's not left. Is she left?
she is a pragmatic progressive. Okay, I
Okay.
think that she, from a political point of view, is definitely further left than liberal. I'm just talking about her personal
Right.
positioning on not only issues but on major matters like philosophy, personal
Okay.
philosophy,
I
religion, and
agree
all
with
the
you.
rest of that. So she's
I
a
agree with you
pragmatic
there.
progressive. During the 60s and the radical period of the 70s, um, most of the people that I was able to uh, succeed with, right, the people that I worked with and succeeded in establishing community service projects, reforms in education and all the rest of that, they were progressive, practical progressives. They were pragmatic progressives, and we had a lot of success, until the extreme rise of the right, which was actually set in motion during the Reagan administration.
So, well, I just think that I think she's more. She may be progressive in a way and practically so, but I really think she's much more moderate on some things. And I think there's a way that people who are Democrats like her can work with people who are Republican like Liz Cheney to work together
Okay.
nicely to come to some, and maybe that's pragmatic. Maybe that's the good compromise. But it's the only way we save our republic if we choose not to fight each other tooth and nail on every single little thing, which is the way
Yeah,
Donald Trump is.
the
Donald
people.
Trump is
Okay,
every
there are allegations,
people there.
constant accusations of the left, and particularly the so-called radical left, right?
Yeah.
Which is really not that radical, okay? But they're
No.
they're labeled radical left, okay? The things that we did to establish, for example, the school, now College of Ethnic Studies, okay,
Mhm.
and what we do and what we have been doing for over 50 years at this point, got labeled CRT. People didn't even know what the hell CRT stood for, what it meant in real terms, and then everything about ethnic studies, that the movement against it had already started in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, there were court
CRT,
cases. Yeah,
CRT being critical race theory.
race theory. That's right. And
People forget already because now they're into DEI versus diversity versus
right. Yeah.
it's
Well,
just anything that has
DEI is even worse. Remember when Trump was forcing people define DEI? What does that mean to you? Define DEI. And and the person said, "I just did. It's diversity, right?" But
Yeah.
that fool doesn't know what diversity means in real terms. All he
Yeah.
knows is it's DEI is a new N word. That's what they're doing. They're
Yeah.
using like woke, for example. That's
Yeah.
the new N word.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's really simple.
I use that as my I use that as a joke that Kamala is the new N word for some
Oh,
people.
God. Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Maybe a joke, but I think That's
I know,
also
but that's what makes it real. That's what
yeah,
makes it real
that is exactly what. Well, but
because
see, good jokes,
yeah,
are real.
our truth, their truth,
Yep, that's it. That's it
that's
right there.
if
That's
people,
what makes it funny.
yeah, and
This
people
is
who
the
say,
reality, you know.
yeah, people who say Kamala, you know what they're saying.
Yeah,
They're
it's
saying
like
you're
people
an
who say
N-word.
Iraq and Iran. You know
Oh
exactly
yeah,
where they're coming from.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
and
and
usually they're former military.
so
So,
all right,
so the only former
Dan.
military that make it a point to say Iran, Iraq are
Yeah,
high-ranking officials, right?
yeah,
High-ranking officers, right? And spooks,
yeah.
intelligence officers. Okay,
I'm sorry, Dan. I'm kind of. You're making me scared now that there might be violence. I don't
I'm
want
glad.
violence.
I'm glad. I'm scared of you,
I
Emil. You
yeah,
know,
I'm because I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because I see I've seen Liz Cheney speak live. I've seen her speak recorded. I've seen her, on the news. Ripon. She was in Ripon, Wisconsin, birthplace of democracy.
yeah, yeah.
And and actually that's why the town Ripon, California, is named because a guy from Ripon, Wisconsin, came to California in the 1870s, got homesick, and said, "I'm going to rename this town Ripon after my home." And
Why?
so
Why did you do that? Why did you do that hick voice?
that Hickwood, because he was from Wisconsin, and that's how he talked. He
they're not.
talked like that. He
They're
did
not
talk like that.
necessarily a bunch of
Oh
hicks,
yeah,
but
yeah. He talked like that.
they
He
have a
said,
pronounced
this,
accent though.
yeah. Oh yeah.
They do
This
have
is
a
where
pronounced. Yeah,
coming
they have a
Ripon,
way of
Wisconsin.
speaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, so anyway, so when I saw Liz Cheney, and she, she can be an attractive person, I guess.
She look at
She,
you
she,
could never doubt their what they believed in. Okay, you could
yeah,
never doubt what was it. What I doubted was whether or not they were being all that principled, because they were among a bunch of other people who I thought didn't even believe what they were saying.
yeah. But
Now,
here's
now,
the thing.
now, now we look at Cheney. I mean, her dad.
It,
Darth
yeah,
Cheney, and we
yeah,
look at him, and now I have to say he was acting on principle the whole damn time.
yeah,
He was never a liar. You know, he was scary because he was so strong and committed to the positions that he took on all kinds of issues, and she clearly was in the same frame of mind. She had the same belief system and all the rest of that. But
yeah.
you can't say they're not principled. They're
It's what,
definitely
yeah.
principled.
It's
And
what she believed, and look, and the principles they believe in are in freedom and autocracy, or no, excuse me, freedom and democracy, freedom and democracy,
yeah,
not
yeah,
autocracy,
that was
not
your
autocracy.
Freudian slip. That was your
Yeah,
Freudian
that
slip.
was my Freudian slip.
Yeah,
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 I'm sorry
yeah.
about that.
Uh,
No, yeah.
yeah,
So
no, they see. One of the things that I think confuses a lot of people, including college students, right? When we talk about liberalism and when we talk about the foundation of the American Constitution being in liberalism, they don't understand that's a whole area of philosophy, right? But the core principles of liberalism are exactly what you just described. And so the irony is that Republicans, for at least the last 60 or 70 years, have successfully, right, labeled themselves the people who are truly committed to personal freedoms, right, small government, low taxes, and as much as possible, an open society, right? But what they really mean by all of that is, above all, free freaking market, right? It's about capitalism.
yeah, free
Okay.
freaking market, except, and this is the thing that gets Trump into like, what the heck is he talking about? Because a free marketer would not be for tariffs. A free marketer would not be for closing the border. A free marketer would not be, I mean, a free marketer would be someone like William F. Buckley, and he would be for open borders.
Yep.
They
Yep.
would be for open borders, those conservatives.
Yep.
Now it's become a dirty
Yep.
word because
Yeah, but
Donald Trump
now
has made it
now you're really
into
doing it. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's great that you're referring to Buckley. Okay, I think that's fantastic. It immediately brings to mind the outstanding. It's probably on YouTube somewhere, but
Well, the
the
debate with Joe
arguments
Vidal.
between. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
between Vidal and Buckley,
yeah,
those were fantastic, man, debates.
yeah.
And we
They're
don't
on.
have anybody
They're on
on
YouTube.
YouTube. You can
Yeah.
get them on YouTube. Yeah, okay. No, I'm gonna pull it down. We're gonna have an event at school to try and encourage students to get out and vote and talk to people about the
Oh
election.
yeah. So are you bet school started?
Oh yeah, sure. No, they're state
San
schools
Francisco State.
start in the last week of August or the first week of September, right after Labor Day, basically.
Yeah. And are people like really, are they keyed up about the election?
Some
Yeah.
are, but there's been a letdown since all of the anti
Oh,
Israeli, Gaza action of last
is
year.
now
So now we're trying to get them to look at the reality of the circumstances that we face. I got into an argument with one of my cousins,
ah,
who was, among other things, a retired as a major from the U.S. Army, and
ah,
was Vietnam. Did a couple of tours of Vietnam. One first tour as a Marine, and then his second tour, and later in the Army. And I always get in arguments with him when it comes around to presidential voting time, because the guy does write-ins instead of voting for a Democrat. If he doesn't want to vote for a Republican, he does write-ins, and he'll write
so
in
he's
Disney characters. He writes in Disney characters, like Goofy,
oh man,
Minnie,
he should
Mickey.
write in like Ferdinand Marcos Jr. That would
Uh,
be
it's, no, that not no. He was an expert in Asia, so he's got his own perspective. His professional biases, right, work against that. But
yeah.
but one of the things really irritates the hell out of me. I tell him so. We argue, and I say, you're throwing away your vote, and worse. I got to talk to at least two people to overcome what you're doing by voting by that kind of a write-in, and I have to talk to at least two people, three people, and convince them that they have to vote, and they have to vote for Harrison Walz just to overcome what you're doing. And
Yeah.
he said, I put my ass out on the line, and I'm a retired officer, and we took, and you can't argue against that. He says, I have the right to vote the hell I want, the way the hell I want, for anybody or not. Okay, and that's his stance. I still think he's wrong as hell.
No, of course he is. Yeah, of course he is. I mean, because you can. I mean, uh, uh, Lawrence O'Donnell on his show last night talked about this idea in the future when your kids or your grandkids come up to you and say, "What did you do to destroy or to try to stop Donald Trump? What
Yeah,
did
there
you
you
do?"
go.
And if you said, "Well, I voted for Mickey Mouse,"
Yeah,
how can you look your grandchild in the eye? How can you look anyone in the eye and say, "Oh yeah, when there was a vote taken on whether or not this depraved man should move on or whether or not he could be stopped. When
you
I
want
had the
that guy?
choice
Do
to
you
do
want that
something,
guy to be commander in chief again? You really
well,
want that guy to be? If you really
exactly,
believe and care for veterans, and you care for what happens to people who've dedicated their lives to the military and all the rest of that, right? You want this guy to be commander in chief, and and
yeah,
and these people have family and friends,
yeah,
right? Who
and
who who are in the military. We do. I do.
yeah, and they look up to this guy, your
Some
relative.
do. Some do.
Some do, and and the thing is, you get to that question about what did you do, Grandpa, to stop this the restructuring of America, to stop the what did you do to stop the end of democracy? Well, I voted for Mickey Mouse. You see, it doesn't make sense. It says
Yeah.
you got to have a stronger answer. You got
Yeah.
to have a stronger answer. Anyway, so Dan, to get back to the students,
Yeah, but what
right now,
happens if he writes in Jill Stein?
well, that's terrible. Well, RFK Jr.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the thing. Right now, with the Middle East, we're coming up to the anniversary, and yet Netanyahu, I think he just
You mean you're
wants,
talking about the Hamas
yeah,
massacre anniversary?
yeah, yeah. I think Netanyahu wants more war. I think he's playing it
Oh yeah,
to appease Trump, and I think it's sickening.
and it's
And
working.
Well, it
It's
is.
working.
Yeah.
He has swayed enough Israelis, right, to back his play now, because they're getting pushed out of northern, the northern section of Israel that's adjacent to Lebanon. Okay, so
Yeah.
what? Last week, what they said, 100,000 people have been displaced, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to want to just reclaim, their homes, and so that's the way it's going to go. There's a whole lot of people that the only way they see out is to continue the war against Lebanon. So
Well,
now the question is, what does Israel do? What's their next move, and what is Iran's response to that? I
well,
don't think Iran wants a war, and because it would be extremely costly for them. It would mean a major setback, and the only reprise that they could possibly get is if Russia starts helping them out, and maybe Russia, China, right? Uh,
yeah. I mean, and this is the thing. We it shouldn't be an issue, but I'm afraid that it is, and I just know that if Donald Trump's in there, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to
I
happen.
think whether or not Donald Trump wins, this Israeli thing is really going to be a continuing problem.
Oh yeah, continuing problem, but I think it's exacerbated if
Oh
Donald
yeah,
Trump.
absolutely, absolutely.
It's maybe under control, more under control if it's Biden. Well, it's not going to be Biden if it's Harris and Walls, but I just think that right now.
All of the things that the Republicans have been blaming on the Democrats, right? Like a porous southern border, failure in their relationship with Mexico and Central America, problems with Venezuela, problems with the Caribbean, okay, and then we're not even paying attention to what's happening in parts of Africa, right?
Yeah,
Eritrea, Ethiopia, we're not
yeah,
even paying attention to what's happening in parts of Southeast Asia, okay, and instead we're worried about Iran and Russia. Well, for sure, Ukraine is gone. If Trump wins,
mm,
Ukraine is gone.
yeah. Oh yeah,
The
crazy.
Republicans are just going to say no more supplies to Ukraine,
Yeah,
and Russia is going to roll right over them.
right. And there goes our credibility with our allies. It's just
Credibility, the guy. What? How is Poland going to react to that?
yeah. Well,
Okay,
I mean, I'm talking about
how
our
is Germany going to react to that?
I'm not talking about any one individual, just our credibility as a nation. Unfortunately, if Trump wins and he's the head, we'll have no credibility.
Well,
Uh,
we've already lost credibility because the guy was president once.
yeah, yeah,
You
but
know what we've been in repair mode for the
yeah,
last 4 years.
yes,
Okay,
yeah,
and we've only
and,
partially repaired.
yeah,
So, so in terms of a loss of credibility, a loss of any sense of consistency with so-called constitutional, American constitutional principles and all the rest of that stuff, we're shot. We're
yeah, yeah,
shot.
yeah. Well,
I
that's the
mean,
thing. Well, it's just another reason why we can't see Americans voting for Trump, and yet it's still so close, still so
well, this
close.
is where I think your optimism about Cheney and true conservatives,
Mm,
true Republicans, right, in the traditional sense of Republican Party, uh, they the people who actually encouraged me to go to law school, at least half of them were Republicans.
yeah, we can
And
forgive them that.
the,
We'll
the
forgive
the
them.
vaunted California State Supreme Court, right? Well,
Mm,
I'm talking about justices on the state Supreme Court,
yeah,
and also their clerks encouraged me to go to law school because
yeah,
my father was a janitor that worked on their floor
yeah,
and at the state building downtown. And so I knew these folks, and I really respected their decision making. This is the California State Supreme Court that was vaunted not internationally for the kinds of decisions that they were making. They were also hated by the right
right.
because
So
they were seen
this
as
is the Warren
crazy
Court,
liberals.
right? Wasn't
Yeah,
Warren part of that?
but there were Republicans on that
Yeah,
court. There were, but you never knew what their political affiliation was.
yeah.
I didn't know until they told me what their political affiliation was. My parents, their personal attorney was one of those clerks, and I didn't know that he was a Republican until he was called by Reagan to Washington.
Yeah. See, now that's an important part that we should not get let, and ideally we don't let politics get into these decisions. But ever since Donald Trump, we started seeing this thing politicized, in the Republicans blocking nominees. Merrick Garland. I mean, it's become a let's stack the court, make it Republican, and because the courts are biased, and they shouldn't be. And ideally, that the courts of the California court in the past, you couldn't tell what they were. That's the kind of court you want. You
Well,
want blunt
see,
justice.
but once again, the American public and the Senate particularly was hoodwinked by the presentation of, for example, Roberts as a moderate.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, he was presented as, yes, he's a Republican nominee, but he's a moderate. No, he was not a moderate. Okay, he was actually further right than Rehnquist.
Yeah.
Okay, and when Rehnquist was appointed by Nixon in the mid 70s, I think it was 73 or 74, he was appointed by Nixon. Okay, he was seen as being way right of center. What changed was when he became Chief Justice, suddenly he became a moderator, okay,
Yeah.
of the dynamics of the court. And so the decisions started to change towards the conservative, right? Especially after Roe versus Wade. But notice they didn't undo Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Republican nature of the court even upheld affirmative action.
Yes,
So,
yes, that
you
was
know,
my next point.
hey,
Thank you.
as long as we're switching to affirmative action, I want to ask you about this latest news of the last couple of weeks about legacy. Gavin Newsom
Oh
signing
yeah.
that
Even private
legacy.
institutions, right?
Yeah.
No legacy.
So I guess if we saw, we'd have to see all the states do this to make it right for everybody.
They're not going to
But
do it.
oh, of course not. But
Mhm.
what do you think about what Newsom did? I mean, I guess he's leading by example. No
Oh yeah.
one's going to follow him. I
I
mean,
think,
you have to in California,
yeah.
but it's a balance. They got rid of affirmative action. Now they're getting rid of legacy. That's good. So now the affirmative action that stayed, is the bad one, is gone.
Here's my problem. Okay. In California, and I don't know how this policy is now. Yeah, well, it's actually a law. He signed off on it.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to affect this process, but faculty and staff working in the CSU system got a discount on tuition for their kids attending CSU system
Right.
school. Okay, so is that like a legacy? So it could be argued that it is like a legacy, and it could then subject faculty and staff, right, to having to pay full tuition, right? And it's already problematic for a large number of people who might benefit from going directly to a four-year institution. They now are routinely directed towards community colleges, right, for the first 2 years, because it's a lot cheaper. So there's a major savings. It's like $8,000 in just tuition, almost $8,000 a year now, to go to CSU systems colleges. Okay, and it's another 50% higher than that to do a master's degree, right? And I'm sure they'll double up on it. They'll make it so that it's 16 grand per year to do a master's, and you got to do 2 years most of the time. There are 30 units and up, right? And it represents like a couple of years because it's full time at the master's level, is 9 units a semester. So that's where we're going. Okay. Now, why has all that happened? Really simple. Once again, This was creeping reverse socialism, right? This is creeping authoritarianism. How can I say that? Really simple. What did they do? They started with Proposition 13, cutting back on government services, and especially cutting back on support for education, and particularly university, college and university level education.
All right, but they didn't target that so much as they targeted the property tax. Prop 13 was about the property tax. It affected all these other things, but it was really aimed at property taxes on Californians,
Yeah,
especially on
well,
seniors.
that's okay. I'm going to disagree with you completely. It was a device that was used to attack all government institutions and
Well,
specifically education.
if it,
Okay,
it cut into revenues, but
no,
the appeal to the
I-
voters wasn't to
yeah.
let's gut government or let's gut schools, but it was let's cut taxes on let's cut your property
Yes,
tax. And
it
as soon
was
as they
used
did
as
that,
a. It was used as it. Well, why was it so well favored, heavily favored?
because it cut property taxes. That's why I was
Well,
here.
yeah, but people were interested in cutting property taxes because they were being overtaxed.
Right, but they weren't
It was a
interested in
period of high
necessarily.
inflation. You remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was around, but I wasn't a homeowner then. But we're all still impacted by that because property taxes
Yeah,
are
absolutely,
are impacted
absolutely.
by Prop 13 still, and the funding of all these things are still impacted by
Yeah,
Prop 13.
well, but I'm trying to tell you, this was a device. This was a vehicle
Yeah,
that they knew would work because the pressure was tremendous
yeah,
against all property owners. Okay, and what had happened was, in order to keep up with inflationary increased cost, right, of running government, right, counties started raising their property tax base. You know, how much of the fair market value are we going to tax at the county level? And so people were reacting to that because a lot of seniors who were on fixed incomes, right,
right,
were being literally taxed out of their homes.
right.
Okay.
And
So,
that was the emotional appeal. It wasn't let's
no, that's
end
not just an
funding.
emotional appeal. That's a practical appeal.
Well,
That's not
yeah,
emotional. That's
but it's
physical. That's
emotional.
material.
Yeah, but it's emotional in that it deals with people getting kicked out of their houses. That's what made people vote. But
Okay, emotional appeal when it comes to, yeah, the reaction from the masses,
yeah,
right?
but it
Okay,
wasn't. It wasn't. Let's cut government. Let's cut education. Let's because it was
that's
if it
not the
was
way.
faced.
Okay, you're talking about the difference between the way the damn thing was sold and
Yeah,
what its real intention was. And I'm
yeah.
telling you, its real intention was to cut government. That was it. And one of
Well,
the real intentions was to cut education because of things like women's studies and ethnic studies. This was a calculated reaction. Okay, that was what their intent was. Okay, all you got to do is look what came up in the 80s and 90s.
all
Remember
right.
that that's when affirmative action challenges first started coming up, and serious stuff,
Well,
anti-immigrant
yeah,
anti-immigrant measures in the 90s. Okay, and this is in good old liberal California.
right.
Okay.
And I will say this that it it's true. All this stuff did happen, but why have every why have all the attempts to try to undo 13 failed? All the attempts to undo 13.
Because they have tied corporate interests to residential property interests, residential and other small business property interests. So those two things are merged in terms of their interest in Proposition 13 and the continuity of Proposition 13. There have been within about the last 10 years, right,
Yeah,
attempts to separate, right, the
yeah,
way that businesses get, especially big businesses,
yeah,
major corporations, right, the way they get taxed and the way residential property owners get taxed. And they have failed
yeah.
because people see that incremental thing. It's like gun control, right? Any incremental restrictions on how people, when and where, people can buy guns, how many guns they can have, anything incremental change is
Right.
seen as a direct threat. They're going to come and get your guns. They're
All
going to
right.
seize your guns.
All right. So
Okay.
let's go back
Same
to
thing is
affirmative.
true with property tax.
All right. Let's go back to the legacy thing. You're saying you're connecting Prop 13. You're connecting to the thing about legacy that Newsom signed to Prop 13.
No, no. I'm simply saying that uh, costs have gone up for education because Prop 13 caused the state, right,
Right. To
to
not
to cut
funding.
back on funding for
Right.
higher ed. Okay, for
Right.
higher ed. So two things happened, right? A increased dependency on corporate funding, right? Okay, and increased tuition. uh,
Yeah.
Also fees. Okay, so what is the effect on the general public? All right, fewer
Higher
people
cost.
go into four-year institutions.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so when it is enrollment and body count, if I can be so gross as to recall a terminology that came out of the Vietnam War, because it's based on body count, right? Uh, Fewer enrollees, less money goes to the colleges, so they have to make cuts. Okay, so what got cut in the 80s? Interdisciplinary programs, right? One of the most creative approaches to so actually addressing real issues in society was the development of interdisciplinary programs, right?
That's where departments can merge and check out each other.
They
Others,
don't necessarily merge, but they offer patterns or paths, right,
they can
of,
work
of
together. They can work
education
together.
that allow students to get different tools and different perspectives from different disciplines. That's
Right.
interdisciplinarity. And so you, for example, could look at the hard sciences and look at, for example, animals, the treatment of lab animals and all that, and also take courses in philosophy
Right.
and the morality and ethics, right, of the
Right.
treatment of animals. And you could also look at nutrition, right?
Right.
So there could be a variety of different disciplinary approaches, and they all address a single problem, a singular problem.
Yeah.
And you can look at it from all of those perspectives.
Okay. So now let's get back to legacy, because Gavin Newsom signing legacy at the end of legacy. How does that fit into your argument that it's all part of the?
I just want to know. No, I'm just saying it could be, the argument could be made by conservatives that to have this kind of destruction of an American tradition, right,
Mm.
is contrary to freedom of choice and all the rest of that. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Oh, because
and so,
they want to uphold the legacy. They
well,
like
the reason, yeah, they're going
they
to want to
want
uphold legacy, and especially in private institutions. That's
right.
where I think this is problematic. That's where I think it's problematic. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, could uh, could the discounts that
To those
traditionally were available, let me put
the
it
fact.
that way, to faculty and staff for their family members going, their children going
So
to
we
see
don't know. We
this
don't know
tradition.
that. We don't know yet what will happen.
Yeah, we don't know.
All right,
So
but basically, the cutting out legacy, is that just an easy like headline? Oh, we got rid of affirmative action for the rich and affirmative action for whites. Basically by getting rid of legacy. That's got to be a positive, though, right?
yeah, I think, yeah, but it's
I mean, you
reactionary.
pointed out a negative. You pointed.
It is it is it is reactionary, and one of the reasons that um yeah, people, one of the arguments that was made at private institutions that used to be exclusively for males, for religious boys high schools, Catholic boys high schools particularly,
Mhm.
in the 70s, a lot of the graduates of the 60s who were now in college, finishing college, and engaging in their professions, and building families, starting families, had daughters.
Mhm.
And so in the late 70s and 80s, one of the complaints that the graduates of those private institutions had was that they were exclusively male, and they
Mhm.
felt that there was clearly a gap in terms of the available quality of education, and that gap obviously was favored males against females. And so they started to argue that we want women to be accepted, girls to
Co-ed.
be
We
accepted
want
at these
co-ed.
high
All right.
schools.
So how
So,
does it connect with
well,
like?
but see, they argued legacy.
Oh,
That they argued legacy. They said, look, we got kids. We were graduates of those institutions. The girls ought to be treated the same way as the boys. And that's exactly how diversity for girls was addressed at the Catholic institutions. That's how my older son met his wife.
what?
Okay.
So instead of going to co-ed, they said, well, you got girls' schools and boys' schools. That's the way we
No,
should
no,
keep.
no. They both went to the same high school.
Oh, okay. But I mean, so there was a little sense of they changed the all male schools and made them
Exactly.
co-ed.
But that didn't happen until the 90s. Okay. So now you're going to go do away with legacy for the private institutions. Okay. I don't know. I think there's going to be plenty of arguments that it might be unconstitutional.
So it's already the law, though. So
Yeah. But so
it'll be,
what?
it'll be challenged.
So what?
Someone
109 is the law. 187 is the law. 209 rather, and 187 is the law. And are they
Yeah.
all completely applicable? No. They've been stricken in, for the most part, as unconstitutional.
Yeah. So is this just window dressing for Newsom to try to be a good guy?
No, I think
As
it's
like,
pretty
hey, we know what
consistent.
we
No, I
got
think it's pretty consistent with it's pretty consistent with his general MO.
which
I think
is
yeah, I think it's similar to the situation where he said whether or not you like it. Remember when he announced that we would recognize gay marriage in city and county of San Francisco?
yeah.
And the way he said it was unfortunate. He said whether or not you like it, we're recognizing it. And that's kind of an in your face thing. This action was a little less in your face, but nonetheless, it's clearly, as you frame it, right? It's clearly a reaction to the anti-DEI movement that has become part of the forefront of so-called conservatism.
So more of
America.
more of a headline grabber than a real positive, because it's being sold as
No,
it's being sold as we're leveling the playing field for everyone, especially for places like Stanford. It shouldn't be like just because you went there, your father went there, your grandfather went there, doesn't mean you automatically go there. You got to be
yeah. No, you're mentioning Stanford because it's California. It's a California law, but I think what people had in mind also was this was a direct reaction to what Harvard did,
of course, yeah, but I mean,
because Harvard had to post the percentage of legacy, right, and it's
yeah,
higher than 10%. So
yeah,
that's a lot. I mean,
yeah.
when you look at legacy, it's probably double or triple the number of people who get in through a DEI admissions program.
So I'm just trying to get. I mean, you said something negative about what this could mean, and some
No,
people are going to
I'm saying it
challenge
could
it.
be challenged. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying. On the one hand, it can be challenged from the right, and on the other hand, it also could affect simple things like lowered tuition for faculty and staff.
Yeah.
I mean, staff actually improve their own status educationally by themselves enrolling in courses at the universities where they worked. I know many members of our staff within the College of Ethnic Studies and elsewhere
Yeah.
in the university administration that were able to improve their status, move up, upline in terms of their administrative position and jobs.
So would that count as legacy if you get in with that special status as being an employee?
I'm saying the argument could be made from the right that special status also is a form of favoritism,
And
and
that's
so that
ultimately
could be
what we want to
stopped as
get
well.
rid of. Yeah,
Yeah,
ultimately we want to get rid of that.
you're going to want to get rid of legacies in
Well,
private
so
institutions. If you're going to equalize the floor, then let's get rid of those discounts.
have you heard anyone say that to you? Say, Dan, I don't know where if I
No, but I'm sure somebody's going to think of it, and I think I just planted the seed in some SOBs, and they're going to try and do it. Don't
they're on
worry,
SOPs.
don't worry. The right they hire. When I was in law school, I was looking at some of the people that were hissing me in class and saying, "Yeah, that SOP is going to go work for a major corporation and then work for a think tank, somewhere in D.C. And that's who they were. I mean, these people were like that. Every time I came up with a criticism of the failures, the potential failures of SEC, for example, I get hissed, and
Yeah.
and
All
and,
right,
and everything that I said was problematic. It all happened. It's actually happened.
all right, but basically, Gavin Newsom, he shouldn't. I guess he could take a little victory lap for getting rid of legacy, because they're trying to get rid of legacy at Harvard now, and that's going to be a while. So he's saying, hey, with a stroke of a pen, I got rid of it, but not so fast. There's probably going to be some people who will be
it's going to be
critical.
challenged. It's going to be challenged, and we got to see what the how good their arguments are.
Well, we'll see. I mean, like, because even victories like when Sandra Day O'Connor said, "Oh, we'll have affirmative action for maybe another generation," that quickly changed.
Well,
this past.
The court for what, almost 50 years, the court, because the timing parallels Roe versus Wade, right?
Right.
The first federal action against affirmative action was DeFunis versus Odegaard, 1971, I believe, in Washington. Mm-hmm. And so, but the court simply dismissed the case and said, we don't want to hear it. Because the specific individual, DeFunis, had been admitted to law school. So they said the case is moot.
Yeah. Hey, it just like, the guy who won the case for the Asian kids, the Chinese kids.
Right.
He lost in Texas, a similar case.
That's right.
He had a white plaintiff, a white female plaintiff. And I remember Scalia in her argument said, well, she didn't get in. Maybe we could just refund her application fee. Maybe that's the damages.
Oh,
that's Scalia. Scalia said that.
Yeah.
So, anyway. All right.
Yep.
Dan.
And we thought he was the crazy guy. And
right.
all of a sudden now we got Alito. We got Alito looking crazier than Scalia.
Scalia,
and we got Thomas looking like he's from a different planet.
Yeah. Scalia.
Okay? And Roberts backing, and then Roberts backing them up.
Yeah.
Okay. Roberts backing them up, so that even on one occasion, I can't remember what the specific case was. One justice disagreed with the majority, which was a conservative decision, right? And then the other, one of the two younger justices, right, recent appointees, disagreed with him in another case. So there's a possibility here that the younger people on the Supreme Court, are getting the message, even though they're Republican appointees and all that, man, these crazy old guys, they're really over the line. And this is where my concern is, right? My concern is we got to win both houses of Congress. We got to go triple. We got to get the presidency and both houses of Congress. And in the first year, you got to go after the court. Yeah. You got to slam the court and either move on expanding the court, okay, or move on to direct impeachment. And I'm saying impeach Thomas.
This has never been the approach in, say, the last 15, 20. No one's ever talked about it. I mean, when I remember being in Hawaii at an opinion page meeting, and we were just scratching our heads about, Alito is the new appointee, and people just realizing, and this was in 2006, I think, people just realizing, well, this is the consequence. Elections have no one was thinking about elections having consequences, and this is going back about 18 years now, right?
Yeah.
18. I mean, that's when it dawned, because everyone was so nice about things. Prior to 2006, 2007, everyone was, and this was even during the Gore, right? The Bush
they let
Gore.
Thomas. They let Thomas in, and the only guy that they blocked was Bork.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they
let Thomas in, and you know why they let Thomas in? Because he's black.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we had that in what 90, 91, 92,
Yeah.
and
Isn't that ironic though? That everybody bitches and complains about unqualified people of color,
yeah,
right?
and there he
And then
was.
what do? They put a token on on the court, and the
Yeah.
guy. Did you ever notice how quiet the guy was up until
Oh
the
yeah,
Trump
at the
administration?
he never talked. He
Yeah.
never talked at all. And then only the last I think only since Trump Biden he started
Yeah.
Trump and then the Biden he started being more vocal,
That's right.
and then he got exposed for taking the money and for enriching himself,
Yeah.
which he can't deny, and then not disclosing. He
Yeah.
should be impeached. He
Yeah.
should be.
Professor Hill would be very happy that you used the word exposed.
Yeah, he needs to be impeached. And he is the exact reason why we should have a more responsible affirmative action, because Thomas was an affirmative action hire. He
Well,
was.
yeah, people really were chicken in terms of going after Thomas. They were really spirited, and you got to remember it was Kennedy, right?
Yeah,
It was Ted Kennedy that went after Bork successfully,
yeah,
and so the fact that Thomas, I didn't mean that Thomas was just an
okay.
affirmative action hire. I didn't mean just that. What I meant was it made it more difficult to attack him
Yeah. That's
because
true.
you would be vulnerable to the accusation that you're just racist.
Yeah, people didn't want that. Well,
Yeah,
God, we went far afield on a number of things,
I don't know
but
about Farfield. Where
but
were
I
you?
mean, well, I was standing here in the corn, uh, in my
You
closet.
you were
No,
waiting
no,
for him to build it so they would come.
yeah, no.
Um,
Actually, I'm glad because I wanted to talk about some of these things in the news, and then of course we talked about legacy. I wanted to talk about obesity because I saw something that said the trend in obesity is down, but I'll get into that another time.
yeah,
Um,
well, I'm glad you brought it up because I'm right on the line of technically obese.
well,
When you if you have like a 30% BMI
yeah,
problem, yeah. So
it,
and I have successfully started to lose weight. So
yeah.
I'm going to be very meal conscious when
Uh,
we when we get together on Sunday.
Yeah,
But
well,
anyway,
a meal
this
with a
was a
meal.
spirited discussion. I really appreciated this
Well,
discussion.
listen, to get back, since you mentioned obesity, you're right. First of all, the body mass index is a BS number because you got weightlifters who are suddenly obese because it's the wrong kind of count. But well, we're on the subject. Here is the trend. Obesity is still high, but the obesity rate in the U.S. has stopped climbing. So it was going bam, 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 bam. Oh, it stopped, and now it's going down. It hasn't gone down a lot, but it stopped climbing, and it's a remarkable trend shift after decades of growth. I mean, if you see it's like constantly going up, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
now it's kind of peaked. So maybe it's a peak. The big picture in the last few years, a sea change has occurred in how obesity is understood, with the focus shifting away from personal willpower toward seeing obesity as a disease. So, and with the emergence of drugs like Ozempic, the U.S. has tools that could eventually help bring obesity rates down. Yes, but severe obesity has been rising, reaching a rate of nearly 10% of U.S. adults, according to recent CDC data. So the
Yeah,
number has been rising.
that's still probably
Yeah, 10% of U.S. adults. I think my software is obese because it's not functioning right here. Just over 40% of adults are considered obese. 40% of adults. Can you?
wow.
Yeah, still an alarming high rate given the condition's health risk. And new anti-obesity drugs are reasonably effective, but their success in lowering the obesity rate will depend on how many people end up having access to them. They're so expensive. Number one, $1,000 a pop for Ozempic, and there's no guarantee that you're not going to yo-yo back. But now, see, this is the takeaway. The rate of obesity, 10% of U.S. adults, the rate, but just over 40% of adults are considered obese. So that's,
still
one looks better. Hey, our rate is down, but still, we're all 40%.
Yeah, I mean that's really pretty bad.
Yeah, and that's why I say go vegan. Go vegan. Vegan power. It'll help you. I'm not saying there aren't some obese. I know some obese vegans because Oreos are vegan. So, what? Yeah. All right, now Dan. As long as we're talking diet, this happened to me the other day. They had a hot mic and an open mic. Hot mic, and the hot mic was if you ate a number 6 hot sauce, something called the bomb, then you got 6 minutes of stage time. I thought about it, but hot sauce and me, we don't agree. I'm a moderate when it comes to hot sauce. I think Tabasco to me is the bomb, and Tabasco is pretty mild to many people out there. So I chickened out and didn't go because I saw other people.
Yeah, it's sort of it is.
Yeah, I saw other people get up in front of me, and their whole set became not their material that they had prepared and wanted to test. Their whole set became, oh, I'm in agony. Oh, I'm gonna upchuck. Oh, I'm gonna have an atomic stool. I'm gonna. Oh my God. I mean, and it was funny. It was funny. See, you laugh. It's like people falling down at pratfalls. It's funny.
Oh yeah, no, I know the feeling, dude. I know the feeling. There was a great lunch right around Powell Street at the corner of Market, and they had a great roast beef. Okay, roast beef. So one of the best things that they had was a roast beef sandwich. So they had 5 or 6 crock pots, those little mini crock pots, and of mustard at varying degrees of heat, right? Yeah. And of course, me being Mr. Hot and being aware of the difference between habaneros and jalapenos and all the rest of it. I was in college at the time. And so I went over and went for the crock pot that was furthest to the right, which meant this is really going to be severe.
Yeah, hot as hell.
I thought it must be a combination of like horseradish and mustard or something like that, right? So I spread that on the sandwich, right? And I was so hungry that I had a place reserved for myself with an empty glass sitting at the table and a silverware set at the table. And I was walking over with the sandwich. I took a bite and put the sandwich down on the table, and I immediately suffered a loss of momentary consciousness. It was like somebody took a torch, right, and stuck 2 torches, one in each nostril, and flared it. Right, it went right up past my sinuses, past my eyes. Yeah. It felt like my scalp shrank, right, into the size of a quarter, and I couldn't see because my eyes were watering so badly. Yeah. So I remembered where the glass was, and I sort of felt my way over to the glass on the table, picked up the glass, and I tried to act normal as I walked back towards the water fountain dispenser, right? Yeah, I was running like crazy, and I was desperate, man. I was barely.
I'm telling you, I was very. I said I was going to do it. My name was never called, but before my name could be called, I left because I realized, what am I doing? I mean, I'm not going to do this for comedy. I mean, they're not going to nurse me. into normalcy. I know what it's like to have, gallbladder attacks. I mean, I've had a like a Dorito chip, extra spicy, and trigger off a gallbladder attack in me.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
You're kidding. You're not
gallbladder attack.
exaggerating. Seriously.
No exaggeration. And this is well, you eat a number of fats, and sometimes all it takes is one thing like something spicy, and suddenly, gallbladder attacks are God's way of saying, "Hey, you father, your wife had the 3 kids, your wife went through labor. This is God's way of saying, this is your labor, your gallbladder attack, and you have just come down." You have just gone down this road where you now are experiencing, because of the hot sauce or the hot Dorito or whatever, gallbladder attacks. I've had to go to the emergency room for a gallbladder attack, and they always say, "What did you do?" "Oh, I had something spicy." Yeah. Anyway, so all right, so Dan, that's it for today.
I feel for you, bro.
See, I know, but I didn't do it. I was thinking about it yesterday, because after I left the club, I thought, oh, they're going to say, "Oh, Emil, he was such a pussy. Oh, you didn't hang in there." But I know if they make you sign a waiver that you're not going to sue them, I said no. And I did sign it. If my name was pulled, if I had to go first or second, I would have had to do it. But they went through 12
I mean,
people.
it wasn't even gradual. I mean, it wasn't gradual. It was just said everybody's got to take this hit.
Yeah, well, before you went on, you take the hit of number. If you wanted 6 minutes, you take 6. They called it the bomb. You eat a chicken wing. So I would have had to eat a tater tot or something, but yeah, I didn't do it. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to. All right, so Dan. Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's Friday. Hey, we're going to go on Patreon, so you should subscribe to Patreon. I'm putting this on patreon.com, all of it, unedited, patreon.com/Emil Amok. You can find it, join, become a member, and you can get all of it. And we'll always put Dan's episodes on Patreon, so tell your friends. Get the link, tell them to join, and you can see Dan say how I'm really moderate and he's so far left. That's why.
No. What I said was, you were ridiculously optimistic.
Ridiculously optimistic. I am optimistic. I am.
Yeah.
All right. So there he goes. My friend Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. He calls me ridiculously optimistic. And I am. I am. I mean, all those critical academics say, "Oh, you're not critical enough." Not critical. No, I'm just being real. I'm just being authentic and real and hopeful. Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, they should clone them. Actually, that would have been a better ticket than Harris Walls. Harris Walls sounds like some guy. Sounds like a Midwest comedian I met somewhere in Wisconsin. Harris Walls, here coming up next. He's your great feature act, Harris Walls, or Harrison Walls. But no, Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris. I'm telling you, that's the future. That's the future of politics. After we get out of this Hurricane Trump that's destroyed the political landscape, we want to right the ship. We got to come together, good Republicans and good Democrats who know depravity. If you're just listening to us and you say, "Well, what the hell is he talking about?" Go to the beginning of the podcast and catch it. We're going to put these things on Patreon, patreon.com/Emil Amok. Unedited, uncensored. It's all real. You'll get several of these a month, sometimes a couple a week. All there on Patreon. And then my column is no longer on Aldef, or my older columns will. I hope they'll keep them on there for forever, because they're kind of a symbol of what did an Asian American think. I put that on Aldef, on the Aldef blog. And you can Google and get to certain things, like what I said about Filipino American History Month or Vincent Chin or whatever. But the new columns will be on Substack, and you can join that for free. So go to substack.com/@Emil and you get the columns there. And you get me reading the columns on Patreon. And you get the Dan with me on Patreon, and you get my podcast on Patreon. All right. That's it. And you get me doing laughter yoga. I'm telling you, laughter yoga, it's hard. It's an exercise. It's not a comedy. It's an exercise. It combines breathing and yoga, and we get a couple of air snorts to get the nitric oxide working. That's where you breathe in the left nostril, and then you exhale out the right. Air snort. Cheaper than that other stuff that they sell. Get the nitric oxide working, get the breathing going. You breathe in through the nose, get the nitric oxide going, and you breathe out through the mouth. And let's see if we can go a minute of laughter yoga for world peace. All right, you ready? You ready? We're going to do this. A minute of laughter yoga. Aloha! Got to go a minute. A minute 5 there for world peace. World peace, it works. It's hard. That's a minute. I mean, you can feel it, right? It's an ab exercise. Laughter. I'm a certified laughter yogi. I won't hurt you. I won't let you get hurt. I'm telling you, it works. Get the breathing going, the oxytocins, the dopamines, the serotonins. A minute. That's a minute. Can you do it for 5? Try 10. 10, you get the max. You get the max. Listen, appreciate you being here. I mean it. And now a little loving kindness meditation. I like that. You know, we get up, cool down. Metta, they call it. METTA. Loving kindness. Hey, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Join me again for more laughter yoga next time. Till next time. Emil Guillermo here. Check me out, Patreon/Emil Amok, Substack @Emil Amok. It's October. Let's celebrate.